I really wanted to talk about this. Invincible Season 3 peters out with a baffling finale centered on a villain we've never met and a hero's dilemma that is never actually addressed. So, I haven't really talked about Season 3 of Invincible, so if you want like my 20-second review, the animation, most of the time, is very mediocre. Like, look, I get Western animation is very different from anime, right? But I've been spoiled. I have been very, very spoiled. Invincible's animation, a lot of the time, it works because it's like a superhero story. My brain typically associates superhero stories with like Western animation, so I can forgive a lot. But the animation, even compared to Season 1, a lot of the time is not that great. However, the last 2 episodes, I'm pretty sure they put in most of their budget in the last episode. But the finale of Season 3... I don't know if this is just me paying attention to it and me like just noticing it for the first time. I think some of the animation in episode 8 was actually kind of jarring because of how it was better than anything else. They animated hair physics in episode 8, which they normally don't do at all. And when I see stuff like that, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? Anyway, I really enjoyed Season 3. I think some of the, like the first half of Season 3 might not have been the best, but overall, Invincible is still incredible. I love it. Who animated Invincible? I don't know if they have like a proper like studio name or what, but it's happening within Amazon. I don't know exactly who's doing it or what, because like with Western animation, it's very different. It's not like we know there's like Studio Mid or something, right? It's a bit weird like that. But big picture wise, I still love Invincible. It's great, and we'll talk about this in a second as well. Kirkman is way more involved than I even thought he was, right? So this is someone who works on Invincible. You can see he's followed by all the accounts. You can't because my face is in front of it. Robert is writing entire series all over again for the adaptation, like an amazing second draft. He told me about the extra dialogue, and I thought it was one of the best additions to the whole scene. It added so much to his character. I'm not sure who came up with that specific Bloodheart detail, but I'm jealous I didn't get to draw it. This is someone asking about the changes they made for the animated show. So Kirkman is overseeing this 100%. Imagine if they did this with The Walking Dead. Please. Now, getting back to IGN. It contains spoilers. I wanted to read through this because I opened this and I scrolled down. And like, bro, ain't no way. Ain't no way. Ain't no way, bro. Ain't no way. Let's see. After what I've done ended on a high promising and action hand in hand with vital advancement for the characters, the season 3 finale drops the ball. Narratively scattered and thematically incoherent, is the first bad episode Invincible's ever had, one that draws on familiar sights and stories from the show and other superhero media but presents them with little to nothing beyond the surface. Well, this is giving no examples, so it's kind of like narratively scattered. I really don't think it was. The only thing that to me seemed weird is Cecil imprisoning the guy. That's the only thing that seems a bit odd to me, but that's like at the end, and we'll talk about that, right? The arrival of the elderly one-armed Viltrumite warrior Conquest at a time when Mark is caught once again between killing or not, sets the stage for a moral dilemma that never arrives, which this is objectively wrong. This is like literally objectively wrong. Like, bro, are you watching the show? What do you mean it never arrives? So basically, spoilers, like again, this entire season has been a clash between Cecil and Mark in terms of how to approach this stuff. And within Mark, there's a whole separate thing around whether or not he should kill the baddies, right? Most of the time he thought no. In this episode, he explicitly vocalizes that yes, some of them are just too dangerous. And when it comes to Conquest, he goes to see the body and literally says, burn him. What do you mean this never arrives? This is literally a thing addressed in this episode. But whose conclusion is presented as though it were agonized for over 40 minutes. Instead, we're treated to a finale centered entirely around Conquest, who's better suited to playing a transitional bad guy rather than the final boss of such an emotionally loaded season. I don't really agree with this either, because some of the preceding episodes were like built around pushing Mark to his edge, and this is just like the single embodiment of this dilemma, right? Because like the Invincible War you could say that was rushed. But the Invincible War is around pushing Mark to his absolute limit, in terms of a foe that is just like too much to handle, right? And this is just a single embodiment of that. It's like a mirror villain that is just stronger than anyone else, and he is truly the first one who presents that idea of whether or not to kill him, because this is a Viltrumite. So not only have we never seen Conquest prior to last week's closing moments, he is also devoid of any real ideology, claiming to love only death and destruction. Makes him a useful foil to Mark, but as an exclamation point on Season 3, he's a giant shoulder shrug with little connection to anything meaning with Invincible. I mean, I don't really think so. The only thing he's doing is just conquering things, and then he's met with Mark, who has an actual ideology behind him, but that in a way, Mark agrees with him. I think that presents another very interesting thing for Mark specifically. It is a bit of a cliche, of course it is, where like the main guy realizes that in some ways he actually agrees with the bad guy. This is a cliche, but in the way it's presented with Mark, I do think it's cool. And again, the fact that we also have Cecil, who, like, Cecil is kind of a neutral, not really good, but he is a neutral party where he's doing everything just for the sake of protecting the planet. He will sacrifice lots and lots of people, including Mark at some points, right? Just to make sure that the planet survives. Whereas with Mark, there's a whole different calculus of how he approaches fighting these baddies, and also thinking that the way Cecil goes about things is evil. Even though, again, Cecil is working in the interests of the planet as a whole, always. Right? And there's like this whole interesting interplay between the three of them, where Conquest is just like, kill everything. Mark is kind of like, I don't want to kill everything. And then Cecil is like, well, listen, Mark, you sometimes got to do real bad things, including killing a lot of people, right? So, I don't think this is true. Also, seeing JDM face off against Steve and Yoon again, I'm not gonna lie, that was also cool. Conquest antics force Mark to put civilians in danger once again, a development our hero doesn't even acknowledge, despite it being such a... The last episode literally ended with Mark being so mad that he says the only thing I want to do now is punch something really hard. What do you mean he doesn't even acknowledge it? A Viltrumite big bad using Mark as a battering ram to slaughter innocent bystanders, but Conquest ending Season 3 the way Nolan ended Season 1 lacks weight. Rather than Mark feeling each death, the people are merely collateral damage, and the guy forcing Mark to kill them isn't someone he knows. Isn't that the whole reason why he... This is literally the reason why he says burn him. Because he's so powerful that the amount of collateral damage around him just make it like... That's the thing that convinces him to just kill him and burn him. What do you mean? If there's a bad guy he can just defeat and imprison, it's fine. But now he is faced with someone who did so much collateral damage that Mark says we need to kill this guy. What do you mean? That's why it's contrasting Nolan. Because after Nolan, Mark didn't realize any... Like, bro! I think I'm going to be mauling out. It's Invincible doing an encore of one of its greatest hits, but in a completely uninteresting fashion, making it damn near impossible to invest in the climax of this uneven season. Okay? Oliver veers in and out of the final battle, and Eve arrives as, well, the moment she wakes up from her coma. That they're both at risk of being killed at least lends some stakes to the fight, but when Eve is gravely injured, if anything, this is one of my biggest criticisms with the series, is when people die, they don't actually die. And I get that a lot of them are superheroes, but sometimes I feel like they're just pushing it way too far, in the sense that they're like actually dead. She has her jaw broken and her insides strewn out. It's hard to get on board with the idea that she might actually die. The GDA possesses near magical technology capable of healing any injury, after all. But even before we're faced with this reality, the air is let out of when Eve heals herself thanks to the power uprooted in actual magic, pretty much out of the blue. I can see this being an argument. This, if you don't like this, fair enough. If you don't like this, fair enough. I'm totally fine if you don't like this. I thought it made sense. It was fine, but this is a bit of a thing with Invincible that I can criticize, because they're like, the whole thing with Invincible is that it never pulls any punches regarding these fights, and it does feel like everyone is kind of just like beating each other to a pulp. And sometimes when those people who have been beaten to a pulp, they get up and they're totally fine in the next episode, I do feel it diminishes the impact in the same way that One Piece has the same exact problem. When you do this over and over, the entire story becomes worse, not because it actually affects the whole story, but because now you've planted the question in my brain of, are they actually dead? Right? But multiple main characters have died in Invincible, so this isn't actually like 100% true. It's not actually 100% true at all. Kirkman hated how characters gets revived in Marvel and DC Comics. I'm sure Kirkman did. I'm sure he did, and that's why, like, the entire series opens up with basically every single main dude being killed in, like, unceremonial fashion, right? So that's obviously one of the core tenets of the series. But some of the times it does still fall into that trap, at least in my opinion. So this, if you feel this way, fair enough. Mark wailing away on Conquest is therefore a purely physical act with no emotion behind. What does this even mean? As though Invincible were straining to grant him some semblance of heft and relevance, the results are dull and they ensure that the edges of the episode's violence are all sanded down while the questions of Sinclair's work for GDA. It exists only to hint at later seasons rather than something that matters in the moment. This, I just disagree with this completely because this is just world building. Like, you just show exactly how one thing led to another. This makes perfect sense. The whole thing with the Viltrumite Empire is the fact that the Viltrumite Empire is a monolithic thing. The Viltrumites all operate with the logic that they will arrive, kill you, and kill everyone involved, and then just subjugate you. He is a representation of what Viltrumites are. That's why he is called Conquest. And that's why Mark beats him. This is an actual battle against the Viltrumite Empire as an idea. What do you mean? Similarly, when the finale wraps up, it points towards a vague, oncoming development. This guy is just angry that he doesn't get all the answers instantly. There is still no sign from the all-important absent for several weeks Nolan. Bro is just like, they keep hinting at stuff, I want to see it now. Which, fair enough, I guess. Is near its end, we finally learned that Rex actually did, in fact, die. It's hard to tell who's dead for real. This is actually based. This is actually based. This sentence right here is actually based. It's hard to tell who's dead for real given the sudden resurrections of late. This makes sense. This makes sense. Fair enough. But before anyone, let alone his girlfriend Ray, really has time to grieve, the focus shifts back to Mark's and Eve's relationship. Mark claims to have been deeply affected by when he believed that Eve was dead, but since this lasted for only a handful of minutes, and because this is the last we'll see of Invincible until Season 4, we're left to wonder what impact it'll actually have on him and on their dynamic. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the romance subplot, I'm really not, but I think the way it's presented and the way those ideas are followed through with, in terms of, like, Mark wants to have a regular date, he is zipped off into the future, and then, like, everything just descends into chaos, and then Mark comes back, and even then they can't have their date and all of that. This has been a consistent idea all throughout, and the fact that, like, the moment between them is very tender, right? Because Eve talks about how, like, Rex was a really cool guy, and, like, she has this actual moment where she just, like, thinks about him, the way things were, and she's like, why are you smiling? And then we cut to Mark, who is just like, the only thing in his brain is you are actually alive. And that's the only thing that matters to him, because his entire fear up to this point has been constantly getting caught up in these things and losing people around him, right? Because of what happened with Nolan. This goes all the way back to there. So, was it a bit too fast? Maybe. I think it was fine. Things wrap up neatly for Debbie, who's happy to have her kids back, and the finale features a few ominous hints of how far Cecil is willing to go. But for the most part, I Thought You'd Never Shut Up leaves Invincible in state. Could you just not... Please swap out the title of the episode for just the word episode, with little resolution and only nominal minor developments toward what comes next. Invincible repeats past triumphs, but with far less heft in its Season 3 finale. The episode gives it to the show's most self-destructive instincts. It pivots entirely around a bad guy we've never seen before, and has its hero central season-long arc pay off in words, rather than actions or agonizing decisions. Again, this is literally not true. It's the first time Invincible has been truly subpar, and especially sour note to end on. Look, I don't know what bro was yapping about. I don't know what bro was yapping about. Oh yeah, by the way, I didn't even talk about this. I think the fact that Oliver actually got beat up was also really important. I do think Oliver getting an actual vibe check as to what the Viltrumites are was really good. I didn't even talk about that. Also this. Yeah, I don't know how you can say that. I just don't see a single universe where you could say this episode is a 4. I literally just can't. Like, at that point, I want to know what you're grading. This is literally that meme of, 1? Like, 1? 10, right? So, this is the rating of 1. This is how, by the way, people review video games. It is either the worst thing ever, so it's a 1 out of 10, right? So this is what people call, like, the Star Wars game, which was objectively not a 1 out of 10, right? Like, it's just not. A 1 out of 10 game, you don't even know what a 1 out of 10 game looks like. Like, come on. Come on. Relax. Sometimes in the middle, there might be a 7, right? So this is like when you can't figure out what to say about the game, so you just give it a 7. Or is the best thing ever, game of the year, 10 out of 10. And this is how you review things. There is no nuance in between this at all. It's 1, 7, or 10. How you give it a 4, I've got no idea. Literally no idea. I saw this for the first time and I was like, surely I'm not the only one who thinks this is insane. But what a wild thing to say. It's really weird that, like, he completely, like, reviewers like this are so centered on, like, the character, like Conquest right here. He never really talks about the fact that it's meant to be a representation of Viltrumites as a whole. You know? That's weird. Another IGN article where the writer skimmed Media Literacy 101 that wrote the piece. I mean, I don't know what their other reviews looks like. I've got no idea. It's just that this one is, I think it's completely missing the point of the episode. Right? And the fact that, like, he talks about how Mark never faces the decisions. I mean, it's literally what the episode is about, you know? And that's why Cecil's decision to actually leave him alive is another big counterpoint to Mark. Because Mark was the one who said burn him. And then Cecil wants to squeeze out a little bit more juice out of Conquest, and he imprisons him in this bomb. And I think it's going to be a bad call. I think Conquest is going to get out. And I think Mark will basically go against Cecil at that point. And Cecil will have to admit that he was wrong. Absolutely, I think this is going to happen. Obviously, he's going to get out. Of course he will. If anything, I think it's dumb to imprison him. Why do they have someone who hasn't read the source material reveal the... I mean, I haven't read the source material. You can review these things without checking out the source material. That's totally fine. I don't care. But, like, just don't say things that are objectively not true. You know? Like, if a character has a resolution, then you can't just say he is never faced with facing that resolution. Like, you just can't do that because it's objectively not true. You can say that you didn't like something, or the fact that some characters come back to life. That is totally cool. I don't know what bro's thinking. This is good, though. The fact that Robert is just in there, locked in on developing this is real cool. This is a big thumbs up. I don't want to look at the comments because it's probably spoilers, right? Like, I already saw this. What the hell is this? Spawn. I don't even know what that is. I'm not going to look at that.